Okay, I got cut off on the other one. Facebook shut it down. But anyway, we were talking about the girl up there in New York City, about her issues with, she was mentioning about the where she talks about the new cannabis business and how there's this divide that happens
According
between
to an industry trade publication, 73.
the within the cannabis business, and they do this all the time. So I just wanted to say, so just so you know, this is just a pick up from where we got cut off on the last one. But in looking at this, there was some other things I wanted to raise, like I was mentioning about the demographics between the parties earlier on, and I said I wanted to touch on that, and I did. I want to touch on that. When I go here and we look at the geographics between Republicans, Democrats, in the last year and a half, 2 years that our president's been in, there's been a big movement that's moved a lot of what I guess we call the minority population in America over to the Republican Party, or to the more conservative independent party leaning Republican. And with that growth, there's been some things that I felt were important that, I think because I'm hearing the Democrats, and even with her, she's always blasting like here's that website I was talking about. It shows here, this is from 2016. I couldn't find anything, but I can't find the site I've seen it on, but I was looking at it, and they said that now the Democratic Party, as far as minorities, is down to like 38%. So there's been a large move, a large percentage has grown in the independent and conservative independent leaning toward Republican of the minorities in our country. With that growth, there's some things like here. This was an article I was reading about, because Trump was mentioning about how, the minorities in our country, the employment rate has grown dramatically. Well, here's an article that's been done. It was by, Small Business Trends about the boom since this change. Now, because they're saying, Trump's figures aren't correct and, he's lying. But this article points out the fact that there's been a 400% increase in minority businesses in our country in the last 2 years since Donald Trump came in. And, I would like to say, when you look at this and you realize, to the minority, I hate to say the minority because we're one people. I really don't care for all this racial divide stuff. We're Americans. If you're an American, you love this country, you love the Constitution, you love the principle and the cultures of what we are, you're proud to be an American, you're an American. I don't care what color you are. Okay? But when you realize that, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, which was like at the time I grew up, there was a poverty ghetto. We were pretty, I was the minority in my neighborhood in Newark. I was the minority. The majority there in that city, in the ghetto area, was of black people, and I was the minority. But, when you look at ghettos across our country that are all controlled by Democrats, and I hope that people in the minority, which I know they are, because I know there's a lot of, I know a lot of, the majority of people I know who are black Americans are very smart people. They're not, and any of them in the Republican Party are very aware. When I go to Trump rallies, I see them, I speak with them, and, they're very, very up on what's going on. They're very realistic. They're not about the BS of all this stuff going on. They get it, they get it. And, I just hope that those who are Democrat consider the facts of what I'm showing you right here. A 400% increase in minority African-American businesses in this country in the last 2 years. Now, I understand everybody, it's hard to want to, accept the truth, maybe because you're so loyal to something. But at some point, you got to realize, you got to look back over the decades, and you got to realize that, what are you being loyal to, and what is it doing for you? What is it doing for you? If you look at right now, just a small percentage of movement, from, like I say, when we look at the other statistics here, where it shows the party difference here, from 48%, like a 10% difference, that 10% difference of support toward a party that really, I'm telling you, when I was younger, I grew up in Newark, everybody was Democrat. But we had a small minority that were Republicans. And funny thing was, the majority of those who were Republicans where I grew up were Black Americans, and they were very aware and they knew. When I used to shine shoes up in the city, and I used to go to the diner, you know, and it kind of like in the city, the only color we knew was poor. There was no black or white really. We were just poor people. We all lived together, and you know, there was no real racial issues that I could remember. You know, as a kid growing up in the city, everybody was just one color, poor. You know, but you know, most of the people I knew had Republican conservative that were the business guys or the working class of the black community. They were mostly Republican back then. And now there's this great shift, like I see here, 48%, you know, with 22%, close to, you know, 70% is, according to this, in 2016. In the last 2 years, there's been a 10 to 12% move into the Republican Party. And I think, if I'm not mistaken from what I was saying, in current of the Independent Party, because I used to be independent, I'm Republican now because I supported Donald Trump, so I changed the party for support of him. But the Independent Party has increased almost, I think, like 14% from you know, minority Americans coming into the Independent Party. So I mean, that's becoming like the transition party. Of which the Independent Party is really the silent majority party, and a large percentage of the Independent Party has gone Republican in support of the president. So I believe that's what, you know, they have all these polls. Russia did it, this, that, and everything. I don't buy that. What it was that silent majority of people who went and supported Donald Trump, and that majority of independents pushed it over the top. But anyway, I'm just saying, this shows right here, you know, that, like I say, so you just look at that small, say, total of like 18% that moved independent to Republican. This is the effects of it right here. 400% increase, you know, in small business for African Americans. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. That's just great. And unemployment for Black Americans is at an all-time high in the history of this country. So I just hope you are taking these things into consideration and understanding. It's not the Republican Party that's been holding you down. It's the Democrats. You know, and when you wake up and realize, when you look at the geographics too, like in looking at geographics, what I'm talking about, you look at the geographics of what the Democrat controls. They don't control the middle class and upper class communities in this country. They control, for the majority, the downtrodden ghetto areas. They want to blame the Republicans. They want to blame all the time the Republicans. Let me ask you, how can you blame the Republicans when we're not in that community? We're not the governing force that's doing anything in that. It's all Democrats in that community. They're getting billions and billions of dollars for these communities a year through the federal government in all kind of like urban redevelopment grants, business stimulus grants, but they're not using that money for you. They're putting that money in their pockets. And you know this, like you look at Ferguson. For Ferguson, before the issue started in Ferguson, when you go back years before with Ferguson, you could see this thing building up to what it came to be. These people in Ferguson were being so oppressed by the government there with them. The majority was welfare recipient on government dependency, low-income housing. Any money they got in assistance was being extorted from them through like the idiocy of government, where, you know, they had these people for major tickets for jaywalking, stupidest things, littering. You throw a bag. They were finding them, and then there were warrants out for their arrest and arresting these people for years. This was going on where they were just trying to suck even every penny they got in any kind of assistance out of their pocket back into the government's pocket. That place was ready to explode before the events took place. That event was just the thing that pushed it over the top. And in research that I was doing, which I knew about this back with Ferguson, it reminded me of the riots in the times back with Newark. And let me tell you something, they did it intentionally. And the reason they did it intentionally is because the government and the Democratic Party wants that money. They knew, and the reason they pushed for these things in these city areas, it caused the riots and the upset and the looting and the smashing up and the destruction. The reason why is they get these big urban redevelopment grants, which they'll do a small bit of facelift on the community so they can prove that they're using the funds for something. But before there's a chance for it to fully improve or to have an impact, or where the majority of the government starts saying, okay, look, you had all this, they create a crisis. And the reason they create that crisis and they cause that kind of upset is to destroy that town so that they can go again. Now, what they did in Ferguson, like you don't realize the hundreds of millions of dollars they got from all the riots. They loved the riots up there, the government, the police, and the mayors of Ferguson, because you know what? They got hundreds of millions of dollars in federal government for state of emergency funds. Let me ask you something. with all the hundreds of millions of dollars that they were issued by the president in state of emergencies when the riots did, how did it change your community? What do you see in an effect of a change in that community? Did anything change in that community? Did it improve? No, it didn't. You know why? Because that money went in their pocket. And at some point, like, you know, when I was younger, I can remember in the city how, you know, the government officials come around and they would threaten the people who were on rental assistance and what have you. You know, you better vote Democrat. I remember it as a kid. They used to do this stuff all the time, threatening people, oh, if you don't vote Democrat, they're going to cut your welfare, they're going to do this, they're going to cut your rental assistance, no more bill assistance. They would threaten them like crazy. And it would create like a mob mentality within the city itself among people, you know, in fear, you know, be telling everybody, we better vote, you better listen to, you know, and that's what they do. And, you know, I hate to see it because I grew up in it, and I know there's all you got to do is get out of it, or just stop accepting it. Stop accepting it. You know, if you want your community to improve, I'm just telling you, you know, give Republicans or even independents a shot. Give us a shot. Give us a chance to get into those inner cities and fix them, okay? And we'll show you what it's like to have people who really care about you. Because when I left the city, I grew up in the city. I was told, you know, don't dream too big. You'll never own a home. You'll never be a businessman. You know, we're poor. This is where we come from. You know, be realistic. Well, you know, I owned homes. I'm a business owner all my life. Everything they told me as a kid was a lie. I was able to go out in the world, and believe me, it wasn't white privilege. I earned everything I ever had in life the hardest way. Everything I had to learn in life, I had to learn it on my own. And a lot of trial and a lot of error. Believe me, it wasn't no white privilege for me. I wish there was, because it's still hard. It's still hard in this day and time. You know, believe me, money and business and economics don't care what color you are. They really don't. You can be black or white. If you have the skill set and the talent and the professionalism to do something really, really good, and you have the ability to show that to people and they respect you for your talent, believe me, they don't care what color you are. They're going to call on you. They're going to use you, okay? And I found that out. That's why I devoted myself most of my life to try and better myself every year, make myself a better person, and keep my growth in business going and do my best with my customers. I treat my customers like they're family because they are like family. They put the food in my mouth, the roof over my head, the clothes on my back. I have to respect them for that. And when you can develop that kind of respect for people and they can see the sincerity in you in it, believe me, they don't care. I've got Jamaican customers, black customers, Hispanic, Mexican customers, American customers. You know, they don't care because they know I'm honest with them. What I say I'm going to do, I do for them. They know they can trust me, and you know, they know I'm professional at what I do. They don't care about my color. They don't care. They care about my professionalism, what I can do for them, and my honesty. You know, my morals, my values to who I am as a person. That's all they care about. So, you know, I just wanted to make this video and just try and, like, because I'm sick of always hearing from these people who are always looking for a racial issue under everything. And I just hope people look at that last video and understand. Do the numbers. It makes sense. Do the numbers. It's not a racial issue. This is just a numbers issue. And it's a numbers issue that should be self-evident, especially to somebody who's got a degree in economics, like she claims, and is working for the government. You would think these people would have some kind of common sense. Like I say, I'm just a regular guy. When I seen it, I thought about it. I look into it. I could see it easy, you know. So let me know. Comment on it. Give me your views on it. Give me your opinions. Have a great night.